Hello. Am I
Hello?
even?
Howdy.
Hello. Am I
Hello?
even? Oh,
Howdy.
hi.
Hey, you're probably going to want to pause the stream.
Hey,
You're probably going to...
just paused it.
There we go. Much better. How you doing?
Great. I've never done this before, and I have no idea what I'm walking into. I see people saying I'm about to get destroyed, like I have no clue what's happening.
Yeah, that probably won't be happening. I'm a political commentator and live streamer who's known for debating. I didn't bring you on to debate you. In fact, I didn't bring you on for anything. They sought you out. We just saw one of your videos. We liked it. But now that you're here, can I talk to you about it for a hot minute?
Thank you. Sure, you can. And by the way, everybody, hi, I'm Lexual of IntellectualMedia. So, hi.
They all say hi back collectively, however many thousands of them are watching. When you said you haven't done this before, I assume you mean speak on a live stream?
I've never done a live stream. You saw how hard it was for me to do the Discord thing. Never live streamed on YouTube. Nope. So.
Gotcha. Well, I forgive you. No worries. The video we saw was it was the one that you did on. Okay, I don't know if I could say this on Hoteps. 5 commonalities between.
Hotep tree.
Yeah. Can I need like an official affirmation. May I, as a white guy, can I say Hotep, or is that like some weird racially charged thing? It's a very funny term.
Well, when you say it, do you know the history of the word? Did you saw that in the beginning of the video?
Yeah, well, as I understand it, the reason why, oh wait, chat's asking what are your pronouns?
Oh, she.
Yeah. Okay. As I understand it, the Hotep is kind of like a sort of a mocking term because it's making fun of the tendency of Black Israelites to transpose Black identity on these historical figures, namely like Egypt, because you would have like the the idea that like the pharaohs were all Black, which I think is sometimes true, and the term just kind of stuck.
Yeah. It originally started as a peace greeting in Afrocentric circles, and it has come to be like a colloquial term in the Black community for not just the Hebrew Israelites, but the people who, espouse all of those ideas that I talked about. So it's kind of like it's a slang way of calling somebody out, but it didn't start that way. So I don't have a problem with you saying Hotep, but I'm sure there are people who would. So it's up to you.
Many of them perhaps Hoteps. Yeah. It's because there are a lot of slang terms that refer to Black people. Some of them are okay, some of them aren't. I'm just erring on the side of caution. So I do a lot of sort of reactive political commentary on my channel. I cover news and stuff. And recently we had, the Nick Cannon. I assume you followed that, or you're aware of what happened?
I did.
Yeah.
I was.
And a frustration that I've had is, okay, so I don't think there's like a Black left and a white left for the most part. I think
there is.
Okay. To what extent?
Black people on the left can't even decide whether we're anti-capitalism or pro-capitalism. There are people who still feel like capitalism is the way to save our community. Like there's a divide among Black people on the left. So I know there's a divide among Black and white people on the left. The same way up in Portland with the protests, one of the NAACP Portland affiliates was talking about how we need to focus on Black Lives Matter being the center of the protest. But there are a lot of Black people like myself who, think we should be attacking capitalism because not capitalism. Well, yeah, attacking capitalism because, cops enforce and protect class interests. So we can't even agree on that over here with Black people. So I know there's a Black and white divide, Black people not trusting white people out on the streets who were protesting, saying that they're doing it for shits and giggles. So why do you think there isn't a divide between Black and whites on the left?
Yeah, so let me clarify then. I would like to believe that for a lot of issues, particularly when I discuss them on my channel or when I engage with my community. I'd like to think that there are in many ways, a lot of ways I can talk about race and capitalism and crime and all these issues in a way that doesn't seem to elicit a strong divide in my audience along race. That generally speaking, at least in my community, I think we can agree on what you just said. I would like to think that your side on this issue is the by far the most defensible one. The idea that, of course, Black Lives Matter is not inherently a strictly class movement, but it would be ridiculous, I think, to leave that out, and that to ignore it is to sort of passively roll over and allow for a dynamic of oppression to sort of go by unchecked. I feel like takes like those are, at least in my circles, relatively uncontroversial.
Mhm.
And the issue that I have is that sometimes, in very specific ways, they are. And I get in this really rough position. The most recent issue that I had, this was before Nick Cannon. I'm not rambling, by the way, am I?
Mm,
All right.
I don't know where our original point was, but you can keep going.
All right, okay. We'll see where it lands. With the before the Nick Cannon thing, I talked about how I wasn't a fan of black separatism. The idea that the best way to solve race issues is for all the black folk to just up and go and live in Africa or whatever. And that discourse got a lot of people mad at me, and the contradictions were really difficult to resolve because there's this underlying assumption that white people shouldn't speak over black people on race issues, which was really frustrating because I felt like a lot of the black people were like these Nick Cannon types, where they're like really kind of giant pieces of shit who are using race as a vehicle for delivering prejudice. And I was wondering if you had a take on that particular issue.
You're wondering if I have a take on white people speaking over black issues, or do you feel like you can't speak without somebody accusing you of talking over?
More like,
Oh,
would you agree that there are some people of color who weaponize the presumption on the left that these issues shouldn't be spoken over by white folk?
yeah, yeah, of course there are, but just those people should not be the ones that are. Those people exist, but the truth does exist that there are people on the left, white people on the left, who do
Hmm.
speak over black people when it comes to our issues, or think that their opinion should carry more weight
Hmm.
in some ways. And I'm not sure what conversation you had prior to the Nick Cannon thing that, sparked that discourse, but I'm sure there were a few who were Nick Cannon acolytes or Hotep acolytes who were saying that. But they do the same thing when it comes to black women and our issues, though. When we're speaking about, rape culture or sexism and misogyny, all of those things, we're told that we need to put those things to the side and be black first, and they'll try to speak over us and our issues. I feel like that's any marginalized group, their voices are going to be trampled on by people who have good intentions, but, they still want to be at the top.
Yeah, okay. I think that's totally valid. What would you feel if you were browsing YouTube and you found a video that was like yours, except it was being done by a white lady? Do you think that would be an acceptable video, or do you think an element of the conversation or the message is being lost in the fact that it's not a black person criticizing black issues?
The message will get lost, but I find that a lot of the topics that I talk about are more well received when they come from somebody who's in the conventional mainstream, or they happen to be white, or they happen to be male. Because I talk about a lot of things that really should not be controversial, but when I say them, suddenly it's an issue. So if I got on YouTube and I saw a white woman speaking about Hoteps, yes, I would be kind of offended, because I'm like, where are you coming from? You don't know these things. But at the same time, I'm like, well, she probably has 100,000, 200,000 views on that video, and it's probably getting more people talking about the topic, which is frustrating. So
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure, 100%, yeah. It's like it's the weaponizing privilege thing, right? I mean, if you're going to have these issues, they're probably best spoken about by people who are most or who are closest to them. But
Yeah.
invariably, like white men are always going to have their opinions signal boosted. So
Yeah, and if you're going to facilitate those conversations, you should have someone who knows about it. And by the way, there are a lot, like, I'm looking at the comments. Is this a bad thing to do when you're talking on a live stream, not to read the comments?
oh well, I generally advise that my guests never do because usually I'm debating people and my chat says very mean things about them. But that's probably not going to happen here. So yeah.
Someone asked if I'm drunk. I am not drunk.
How,
I'm
how do you
drinking
sound?
coffee.
Why would? Okay. Um. Yeah. Well, I don't know what they're about, but yeah. It's what's funny to me is to me it feels like in the left we kind of have like a by the left I mean like the left like full on socialists or like very progressive people. I feel like there's kind of an inverse of the respectability associated with demographic, whereas in the general public, 99% of the public, if you're a white dude, everyone loves it. Everyone will take your opinion seriously. You can talk about whatever issue you want. The public eats it up. Whereas on the left, a lot of authenticity is lended to people who come from marginalized communities because they're, of course, closer to the issues they've talked about. Sometimes this frustrates me because I feel like this is used to promote very bad ideas that are treated with greater legitimacy than they deserve because of the demographics of the people who express those ideas. You know what I mean?
I do agree with that. That happens sometimes. People weaponizing their. I feel like people do use their marginalizations to try to talk over other people and be like, I'm an authority on this. You should listen to me. And, that doesn't make for good discourse.
Do you know who Blair White is by chance?
Is she I think I know who she is, but I don't want to just identify her as the one thing that I know her as. Would you mind?
Oh yeah, no, she's a transgender woman, and a
The
conservative, and my personal
Yes.
opinion, a massive pick me girl, the good
Yeah.
trans. I had a debate with her a little while ago, and I don't know how familiar you are. You'll have to take my word for it. She's a very transphobic woman, very
Mhm.
much like I am the good trans. If there are trans women who are ugly or don't pass as well, then they're fake, and I denounce them. And I debated her, and she did that to me constantly. It was like, I just feels weird with like a cis man talking to me about this issue. It was so goddamn frustrating. I of course I understand.
Don't be called out as transphobic if you were to address that. Did you address that?
Yeah, I think,
Or-
well, that's the thing. I can say that in the left and they don't mind. I can go up to any leftist and say, hey, I was called transphobic by Blair White for speaking over her on trans issues, and they'll laugh with me. They'll laugh at her. I just didn't get that with the Nick Cannon type stuff. So it felt really weird. And I totally get where that comes from because I feel like the history of white people speaking over black people on black issues is about as long as black and white people have known each other. So I get where the hesitation comes from. It's such a tricky space to navigate. I really liked your video. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on this.
Thank you. My thoughts have remained consistent on Hoteps. The Nick Cannon thing really blew my mind and really showed me how within the Black community we have our own work to do with throwing away certain conspiracy theories and ideologies, especially the anti-Semitic ones, because until we address a lot of these issues in our own community, then we won't be fully ready to integrate into a true leftist movement, I feel like. Because we're still, a lot of these things are tinged with classism and elitism. And, until we get rid of those, we're going to keep talking in the same circle, saying the same thing. So when Nick Cannon said that and that Hotep video started going around again, I was like, you guys, because a lot of people only saw a clip of Nick Cannon saying the anti-Semitic things. They didn't see him talking about
It was the whole fucking, yeah, he went into it.
Yes. And it was stuff that I had addressed in that Hotep video. People were like, yo, wow, Nick Cannon said that at a later part of his video, like attacking Planned Parenthood or whatever the hell. And I was like, yeah, when you fall into one little part of this ideology, suddenly all the rest of the bullshit starts to make sense. So I'm glad that video made the rounds again and people are watching it. But earlier you asked if I was still making content because it was old. And I do. I make content on Black history. I critique celebrities a lot and capitalism. Mainly, I do focus on how stan culture. Somebody asked where they should start on my channel. Please start with A Short History of Celebrity or The Anatomy of Stan Culture, or Lexual does the 70s, because I like to talk about how we got here now, like how technology has made us just so celebrity identified and obsessive.
Hey, hold up. I profit from that obsession. Calm down.
I heard you saying earlier you get to make money doing what you love and stuff, and being somebody called this a cult.
Okay, all right. Listen, there's unfavorable interpretations of my content and business model going on here. I completely understand. One of the things that really sucks for me is I love doing what I do, but I know that by the nature of live streaming, a lot of my income and attention is going to come from like the parasocial relationship that develops, which I try to warn against. Like, I don't know any of you. I don't care about any, except for the ones of you who I care about, like who I've talked to personally. But it feels like an inevitable component of the model.
Yeah, you do have, and it bothers me when people on Twitter tell me, "Oh, I stan, I love you, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, no, you don't stan. You like the video. I'm glad you like the video, but don't say that. That's awkward. Thanks for the support and supporting on Patreon and all of that stuff. But I really do want to make it clear to people that, I'm not, don't try to deify anything. And I feel like that's for any leftist, any activist, anybody on YouTube. Like, you should draw clear lines with your audience so that they're not thinking something is more than it is.
Yeah, no, so I completely agree. A couple more issues related to the Nick Cannon or Black Israelite tier stuff. Do you think this is a significant issue? Because in like the span of a month, we had Nick Cannon, we had Ice Cube, and there was also that chapter member, I don't know if you saw this, of the NAACP that posted an anti-Semitic meme of like the Happy Merchant, the Jewish drawing of the guy who's Jewish. He's like, his hands are together. Yeah, with a boot stomping down on people. And it all like rose up at once. It was so sudden. And the football player, yeah, I forget his name.
This goes back to what I was saying when I said we have a lot more work to do in the Black community, or we'll keep having these conversations over and over again whenever we have racial tension in this country that rise. Like, the past few months have been crazy in terms of Black Lives Matters protests and anti-cop brutality, all of that stuff. So of course, whenever that happens, these conversations, about Jewish conspiracies and all the rest of this, that's always going to come up because we still don't address it. Like, and we still don't try to have these conversations when we're not facing extreme racial tension. So yeah, it does seem like it blew up, but it's been happening. It's been bubbling under the surface for a while. That's why I originally did that video back in, 2018 or 2019. And,
you predicted it. Yeah, it was quiet back then. You really called it out early.
It's more prevalent than it appears to be, I guess. And it was very disheartening for me to watch us succumb to the same kind of shit that I know white people say about, not all white people, but, some racist white people say about Black people. So, yeah. I hate the whole try to make anybody try to be supremacy, all of that stuff. It just doesn't work for me. It's not cute, and we need to get rid of it.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's essentially just like color swap Nazis. I debate a lot of Nazis on my channel, and the beats are all the same. It's like you said, with the KKK and the white supremacy mirroring the talking points, or the Hoteps mirroring their talking points, maybe. The beats are all exactly the same. This like ultra-nationalism, a belief in racial separatism, a belief in a conspiracy to keep their racial group down. It hits like every single pointer. I don't know, maybe
there's a related video about how anti-feminism upholds white supremacy that was related to that Hotep video. I dropped it at the same time, and it explains how those same Nazis that you debate how they arrive to their conclusions and why they must protect, the patriarchy as best they can. Because, let me ask you, what is the opposite? What is the exact opposite of a white man? Like any woman of color, right?
Yeah,
Any
I
woman.
that's like a philosophy question. Yeah, let's go with black woman now for the to save on the headaches.
Yeah, so a lot of
Are we opposites?
a lot of the hoteps are, they are still men at the end of the day, and, protecting the patriarchal values that give them some sense of power, not all power, but gives them some sense of power. They feel like they have to protect that. And that's why oftentimes I get called a lot of nasty, rude things, even by people who are supposed to be my counterparts. But
So you say the issue is men. Do you support the
no,
institution of a matriarchy or a matro state, as you would?
no, no, I don't say the issue is purely men either. I feel like humans have a bunch of issues in general. But I do acknowledge fully that we live in a very misogynistic, sexist world. And a lot of women internalize that sexism and misogyny. So a lot of them are also like, there are female hoteps. There aren't just men who push that ideology.
No, I agree completely. I've always been of the opinion it's never an essentialist thing. It's just a dominant group thing. If for some reason, historically, anthropologically, it had turned out to be that we had a female dominant society on this planet, then then there would be just all the problems just sort of thrown in reverse. And that ideally the leftist goal isn't one of retribution, it's just leveling things to the extent that there aren't any underlying systemic power imbalances for any group to take advantage of, you know?
Equity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's actually the most anti-racist message of all. The Hoteps and the Nazis both say that their races are not like one another, but they both end up developing basically the exact same ideology to cope with social and economic tension.
And actually, I will not say that the Hoteps developed it. I think they regurgitated it from their white supremacist laced upbringings. Like they took what they heard white supremacists saying and they put their own twist and remix on it. And in some ways, I see it's like a coping mechanism when some Hoteps like to say we were kings and queens in Africa and all of these things, which is true. But like there were also slaves and there were, poor people and fishermen. And, we encompass a full scale of people, and to just put so much emphasis on the kings and queens part is that supremacy that we were talking about. And it's just a regurgitation of white supremacy at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
it's the one time you guys borrowed from our culture. So
I'll stole everything else. No, I'm playing.
one last I have one last meaningful question.
Mm-hmm.
What does the term black nationalism mean to you?
Black nationalism, what does it mean to me? Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm writing an essay in college. Black nationalism. I feel like it's something that can be misconstrued and abused, but Black nationalism is a desire. It's a desire to do away with white supremacy and to strip away all the things that we were raised to see as superior and look inward and look to each other for community and help and getting back to our roots and exploring what Blackness is without racism, without white supremacy. And, I feel like that may be the PC answer, but because it can be misconstrued so much, some people take Black nationalism to mean it's, kill all white people, or it's a complicated thing that's unique to each Black person, I feel like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've struggled a little bit, I think, with the terminology there, because there are some people who say they're Black nationalist, and I'm an anarchist, so for me, any nationalism, like by definition, I tend to be opposed to it. So they'll say,
oh, yeah.
I'm a
whole
black
video.
nationalist, and I'll go like, oh, really? And then they'll explain it's like, oh, you mean like economic empowerment, like enfranchisement, removal of racism. Great, fantastic, you know. And then
Yeah.
some people say black nationalists, and I'm like, oh, black nationalism, yeah, that cool thing where you have like economic enfranchisement. And they're like, yeah, and when we all move back to Africa to establish our Pan-African kingdom, free of white people. So it's yeah. So like you said, I think people take it in a lot of directions. Just something you got to clarify on, I guess.
Yeah. Mhm. And I want to say to all of your new subscribers who are heading over to my channel, I just want to make sure you know I am an OnlyFans girl. If you do not like sex positivity, if you are whorephobic, I am not the channel for you. This bitch shakes ass and gives facts. So please do not go over there and be surprised that I am a sex worker. That's just a heads up for you guys. So
Oh, I've got good news. I would be astonished if anyone who could stomach watching me was sex negative. So we should
great.
be good on that front. I cannot tell you, Lexual, how much I appreciate you coming on to speak in this. I really appreciate it, especially since it sort of just got thrust on you.
No problem. I'm going to let you get back to SpongeBob and I'm going to go over to play The Last of Us 2. And I just want to also let your followers know, check out Angry Black Girl. You can find it. If you follow me on Twitter, Lexual__, it's like pinned to my profile.
Yeah.
And it's a great
Shout out your YouTube one more time.
Oh, YouTube.com, IntellectualMedia.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time with TLOU2. And yeah, have a great night.
Okay, you too.